Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the KC Realtor Roundtable. I'm your host, Marck de Lautour, and today I'm joined by two amazing realtors that have been doing a lot of business in the marketplace. We started this community, this meetup, if you will, with the idea that we're trying to bridge the gap between realtors and investors, because for too long they've kind of almost been at odds. And so I welcome today both Brandi Shoemaker and Klarissa Skinner to the show. So ladies, thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you.
Want to talk a little bit, you both have vast experience and kind of in different realms, although I know you're good friends and are kind of partnering together. Just for the audience's bearing, tell us a little bit about your first deal and now where you stand today. How did you go from 0 to 1? And then where do you stand today? Klarissa, we'll start with you.
So my first deal was December of 2019. I invested in a multifamily syndication deal in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Who introduced you to that deal and what made you think, because how long have you been an agent for that time?
Yep. So I became an agent in 2015.
Okay.
So at that point I had been an agent for 4 years. I was also trying to figure out how to pull the trigger on investing, and I was having a hard time because I was in rooms with people who were investing and I was selling mostly to investors from my real estate business. And I actually figured out that I could not buy in Kansas City because I was just too emotional about it, right? If I would drive by, if the grass isn't mowed, I'm knocking on the front door. So I actually don't invest in Kansas City. All of my multifamily units and my single family units are outside of Kansas City. I probably could now, but at the beginning I couldn't. But
that's I love that tip though.
Yes, but outside of it was just numbers. It was, is it a yes? Does it make sense? Yes or no? So I invested in that multifamily syndication. It was actually one of my flippers in Kansas City who was a general partner on the deal. So I felt safe enough to invest in that deal because I trusted them as well.
Cool. Has that come full circle or do you still own it?
I still own that one. Yep. And now I'm at 1,300 doors as a limited partner, over 300 as a general partner. And then I have like a handful of out-of-state rentals and some other investments that I own as well.
That's fantastic. Brandi, a little bit about your background, how long you've been an agent and when did you start investing?
Sure. So I became an agent in 2010, and it was funny because I started with a really small brokerage. So everything you had to do, you learned on your own. There was no help, no resources. So it took a little bit longer for me to kind of get things rolling. And my background is new construction. So my father owns a custom home building business. And he's like, hey, we really need some agents out here who kind of know what they're doing. He's like, so you should get your license and you can help me when it comes to new construction. So I focused on that for a while. Investing was something that always intrigued me. I had a few other businesses where I had some commercial spaces that I would sublease and do things like that. So for me, I knew kind of the power of investing that way. And I actually got my first deal that I flipped, and that was, I would say, 2018. So basically what happened is, I'd been wanting to flip homes for quite a while. I would always get really nervous or scared, even though I knew, kind of contracting numbers and prices, and I understood the construction business. So I went on a listing appointment. The house was a total disaster. And I kept telling myself, I'm like, Brandi, this is it. Just buy the property, send him an offer. And I kind of chickened out. I let fear, stop me. And I said, 3%, I'll just make 3% on this one. And on the next one, I'll do the next deal, right? So this kept happening. And this specific client I went to go see, I went to visit them. And I was like, this would be a perfect opportunity. So again, I was kind of chickening out on doing the deal. They called me and they said, hey, Brandi, they said, I know we told you this is the number we want, but home investors called, they stopped by, and this is the number that they gave us. And honestly, we don't want to mess with anything. So we're going to take their offer and we're going to go ahead and sell the house to them. And I thought, oh my gosh, not only am I missing out on this opportunity to renovate the property, now I'm not even getting paid 3% commission on the deal. So I said, tell you what if I offered you $5,000 more and now you have a flexible closing? You don't have to be out in 2 weeks, and we'll have a contract in place. And so when we find you the next home, then, I'll close on it and I'll just renovate the property.
Kansas City Realtors earn a quick 5% commission by referring either MLS or off-market properties that look like this to SBD Housing. For over 20 years, we have solved realtors' problems by getting rid of the major repairs or needing a quick sale. Those distressed properties, we can handle all of them. Go to sbdrealtor.com for more information.
And even though I wasn't 100% sure on my numbers,
Yeah.
I knew that if home investors gave a number and I was pretty close to it, then I thought, well, it must be a good price. So that's how I did my first deal.
Well, sometimes you need that little bit of a push, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you had the comfort of knowing someone that was already in that space and you kind of seen them invest. You came from the construction background. Your father probably had, obviously growing up in that industry, you had a lot of knowledge of construction, but you still need that push to get over. Has your father invested in real estate, or is he more of a stock market guy?
We've been talking about investing more in real estate, so that's something that we're working on doing together as a family.
So traditionally, no was the answer. So you were
Right.
one of the first to kind of take that. It's not like your dad had like 100 rentals and you're just doing what your dad
No.
did. This was a big step for you.
It was.
Cool. Clarissa, talk to me a little bit about multifamily syndications. For those that don't understand how that works, can you sum it up for someone that has not heard of that before?
Yep. So it's a business plan that happens to be backed by multifamily real estate. So we pool other people's money together into the deal. Usually it's the down payment, the CapEx, the reserves that the bank takes. And for using that money, there's some upside to it. Normally there's some distributions or an equity multiplier at the end. Usually, going into it, hey, we're going to keep your money for 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7. In that case, then at the end, there's either a sale or a refinance and the distributions along the way, plus the equity multiplier at the end. So,
Talk to me about the difference between GP and LP. What does that mean?
So for a limited partner, it's just actually investing in the deal. They don't have any say on what happens with the deal. On a GP side, you're actually managing the asset from closing till the sale or legacy if it's forever.
When I first got started in real estate, I focused on the courthouse steps, buying properties at auction. But one of the ways that I got over my fear, Brandi, was I kind of did like a pretend deal. Like I would show up on the courthouse steps, I saw a deal happen, and then kind of retroactively went back and looked, okay, he paid $50,000 for the house. Now let me go drive by it. Now let me kind of see him do the renovation and think, would I want to, buy that asset? Okay, yes, I would. So I kind of did a pretend transaction. Being an LP is kind of that same boat, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to take any of the responsibility. Let me invest passively, put the 50 or 100 grand in to do a deal on the LP side. How long did it take you to get the confidence to jump over and be the general partner and actually structure the deal yourself?
Yep. So I think I had probably invested in 10 to 12 deals. And I think you should before you do GP, one, to just have that experience of knowing that feeling of someone giving someone $50, $75, $100,000, right?
Yeah.
What that feels like, what the communication looks like, what the distributions. And I have gone on a couple that have been full circle where we've sold 1031 or just sold and I didn't 1031 into something else. So I think it was about 10 to 12 before I jumped into the other side.
Yeah, got to do your own reps, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't.
Correct.
Other people can't do the push-ups for you, and that's kind of part of this whole idea of trying to inspire a realtor community. Is I've said before, I believe that some realtors, not all, but some realtors are walking over the dollars to pick up the pennies, and giving ourselves the education to be able to take advantage of deal flow and those kind of things is vitally important. So you mentioned your first deal, Brandi. Tell me a little bit about did it go seamlessly? Did we make money? Did we have some learning lessons? How did your first deal go? And what was some of the mistakes and learning experiences you had?
Sure. Well, it did go well. So, it was a learning experience. Of course, having that construction background was really helpful. So for me, I made about $40,000 on that first deal.
Home run.
And
Great.
I looked at it and I said, well, just knowing what my time is worth, if I know that I'm going to make, let's say, $30,000 comfortably, then for me, it was worth it at the time to do that deal. And so it went well. A couple things that I've focused on is knowing, where to buy. So I was very comfortable with the area that I was in. And then also, just just knowing the numbers. So I went in, had a general contractor that I have been working with for about 5 years before. So he would do the resolutions, the repair items for my other clients. And just being in construction, I know that sometimes working with subs and different contractors, that can be a whole other deal of running into problems. So I used my general contractor, and I would test him and say, okay, is he great with communication? Is he responsive? What does the work look like? Do they do a great job? Do they stand back, behind their product that they're putting out? Is he able to do more than just one thing? Because what I found is a lot of times contractors, they get frustrated, or they'll charge you more money if you're always trying to compare, pricing.
Yes.
Like, this guy is great at paint, but his, tile prices are high, or this guy's tile prices are great, but his paint's high. And I've seen people where they try to, get the lowest number on each contractor. Well, then the contractor's, working over themselves, and then they're getting frustrated. Someone else's job takes a little bit longer, so now the whole schedule's thrown off. So I didn't want to do that. So I was like, well, let me find one person that can do 90% of the work. And we had built a great relationship. So he did the work on the project. One thing I do is stamp, my properties. So it's very similar, colors, the quartz, the finishes are the same. And it went really well. There was a couple hiccups. One was the roof was supposed to be newer, so I didn't get an inspection. I always do sewer inspections. That's the one thing. But I already knew that most of the house had to be redone. So I wasn't going to worry about those little things. And come to find out, we did need a new roof. So that was something that was unexpected. But really, it was just doing the first deal. And I'll tell you, once I ripped the Band-Aid off and did it, it made all the other ones so much, easier.
So much easier. Yeah. So you flipped your first, but now you have rental properties. When did you go? Was you an accidental landlord, like a flip that didn't go well and you held on to it? Or did you intentionally start accumulating properties? Because I want to differentiate for the audience as well. There's a difference between fix and flipping, just making money, and building wealth.
Correct.
So when did you say, hey, that worked well, but now I might want to hold some?
So my strategy, just starting off, was, 4 flips a year. So mine's 90 days. I want to buy, renovate, list, and sell within 90 days. Then I would take those proceeds and invest it into like a duplex, multifamily. And it was really tempting because with flipping, it's fast cash, right? So you're making money, you're making, 80, 90, 100,000 on a deal. And you're like, wow, this is great. And yet when it goes to building long-term wealth, it's two different things. So it was probably about 2 years ago. I said, you know what? I really need to start buying and holding these properties, especially with the market we've seen the last couple years. I'm like, man, if I would have kept that property instead of flipping it, I would have made another 30,000 that next year, and just the appreciation. So I started holding my properties. And then what I'm doing is still evaluating, well, what areas do I want to be in? Because, it's a process. It's a journey. You don't hit a home run every time. So the more that I learn and grow and educate, the more I'm a little bit specific on what's the area, what's the price point, what's the long-term game plan. So when those properties meet that criteria, I'm keeping them. And I have a couple rentals that I probably shouldn't have bought. One of my biggest things is I'm not going to buy homes that are 80 to 100 years old anymore. I bought one of those, and it's, so as soon as the lease is up, I'm going to sell that thing and 1031 it into something else.
There you go.
But it's always about evaluating, and each year, okay, what is this property? How is it performing? What does it look like? Is this in line with my goals for wealth building?
Yeah, it sounds like you have a clearly defined buy box now, that you're not only location but also age and range and what you're willing to do as far as a rehab.
It is, and it gets more specific the longer I do it.
I was going to say the older we get, but you guys are so young. You're in it. Klarissa, back to the multifamily game. You were very specific in your desire to just take the emotion out of it. Like, you seem like a lady who's like, black and white, I'm going to do it. It's about the numbers. That's hard for some people to do. You were very mature to say, I know that if I drive by it, I might get emotionally attached. how have you been comfortable investing in other markets? Like, what were the things you had to do to say, hey, I'm not going to drive by it and I don't want to be around it, but I still want to have the confidence? I mean, numbers are one thing, but how did you validate who are your partners in these other markets? How did you get comfortable investing outside of the state of Kansas and Missouri?
Yep. So a lot of it was just understanding the business plan, because most of the multifamily syndications I'm in are kind of like a BRRRR, right? Just at a larger scale.
Yeah.
They're buying it, they're renovating it, they're raising the rents, then they're refinancing or selling the property, right? And I understand that, and I helped so many people do that in Kansas City that I understood like the foundation of that. So it was a lot easier. And then understanding who was on the GP team, right? I would research, I would watch the webinars, read the presentations, right? I actually read things. A lot of people just sign and go, and making sure I understood the numbers. And if I had any questions to ask, this is not sound, solid advice, but I also would look up around the location, because I have them in North Carolina, Florida, Atlanta, Dallas, Phoenix. They're all over. That I would actually look to see where's the closest Chick-fil-A and where's the closest Starbucks, right? Because those are two companies that spend a ton of money on research. And would I want to live there, right? Like, I want to be close to a Chick-fil-A and a Starbucks. I also do that for my single family rentals out of state.
That's smart.
If the Chick-fil-A is not within 15 minutes of it, I'm not buying.
That's a cool little hack, though. It's kind of the Walgreens idea, right? Like Walgreens said, hey, CVS is going to go spend a ton of money on marketing and pick the exact location. We're going to save that money. You know, they probably spend, I think, I heard one time that CVS spends about $25 million a year with regard to location sorting and land. And they'd just go and say, well, we're just going to go buy a little bit more expensive land directly across the street and compete.
And I think the biggest thing is multifamily, just because I am very like risk averse, was not every tenant's going to move out on you on the same day. So if you have a single family rental and they move out and you can't find a tenant, you cover that, right? I also, when I buy a rental property, put a year's worth of reserves of payments in a bank account. That's just my own thing.
Hashtag
right?
profit first.
Yes. But I knew, hey, if the housing market starts to go down, people have to rent. You have to live somewhere. So that was kind of how I was able to sleep at night, investing in these deals.
So you're multifamilies. I know, Brandi, I'm hearing you're kind of like A area and maybe A, B areas. Are you in C class areas for your multifamily, or are you in the upper echelon?
I think they would be, I might have a few that are like upper, like C plus, and then most will be B. We like to kind of stay in that B range, because then if you have to move down or you can move up, either way.
Cool.
So.
I feel like one of the barriers to entry, other than fear, is also a little bit of the intimidation of the lingo. It sounds like you got your education from doing for others and probably being around people that were investing and talking about ROI and cap rates and yields and RUBS and all these things. Brandi, was the lingo intimidating? Do you remember back in the day? Like, how did you get over that hump of understanding what a contractor was going to be doing and what an investment banker would be, you know, debt to income ratios and DSCRs and those kind of things? Do you feel like that's a barrier to entry for some people in your classes that you teach? Or?
Yes, I feel like most people feel uncomfortable when they don't, know something. And so even though I know I'm not the best and I'm still learning, part of it is learning. So for me, I'm more of a hands-on person. So I would go walk with the contractors. I'd invite myself to other, even a new agent. Inspections. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn, I remember my first home that I sold, someone asked me if there was a sump pump in the property. And I was like, I don't even know what a sump pump is, But I mean, really, I think sometimes people feel like if you're investing, it's because you're fearless. And it's like, no, everyone has fear. It's just being more courageous to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. I'm more afraid of what's going to happen if I don't make that leap and take that chance. So really, it's just partnering up with people who are better than me at it and shadowing them, learning, also learning from my mistakes and other people's mistakes. And again, the more you do it, the easier it's going to be. So sometimes we'll offer, we run an investment club at our office, and it's working with realtors to help them create wealth. And we will do like shadowing classes. So if I have a fix and flip, I'll invite everyone in the group. They can come with me. We walk through the property. We evaluate. We say, okay, what would you do in this room? For this price point, would this make sense to tear down a wall or to, add granite or whatever the case is. So we'll go through and we'll say, okay, how much are you going to spend, per square footage for these different items? Here's where we get certain products for a discount, and just some tips and tricks. So we'll do that, and I'll run through, and then I go through the process as I'm going through the process for flipping a home or renovating a home, and then I'll share my numbers at the end.
What a blessing for shadowing someone that's doing an actual deal. That's the stuff you can't do on YouTube, right?
Right.
You can go learn a lot on YouTube, but you can't walk a deal with someone and get inside the brain of what they're actually doing.
Well, one little thing I'll tell people too is, look at a property, and while you're sitting at home at night, instead of scrolling Facebook, get on Amazon, start picking out light fixtures, vanities, take the measurements, look up what the square footage is, what would flooring be, get an idea of what your materials would be. And that's something that anyone can do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the lingo, I think it's just by surrounding yourself with people who are doing it.
Klarissa, one of the passions that I got at a very young age was the idea of trying to build wealth rather than just, trying to, get rich quick, I guess. Talk me through your mindset shift, because when you start investing for long-term gain, you're basically saying to the world, hey, I'm, going to delay my gratification until another year, another decade, another, and I'm going to invest for my family's future rather than my immediate needs right now. What does wealth mean to you, and how have you, what's your mindset like in that regard?
So it's changed a lot, right? Because I actually grew up with a dad who made a lot of money on Microsoft and never wanted to invest in real estate because he didn't want to deal with the toilet, but we grew up very well. And now I was having to learn something new, right, about wealth. And also, I don't want to sell houses till I'm 100, right? I want to go volunteer at the animal shelter and be able to take 4 hours off a day and go do that. I don't want to have to sell and be chained to my phone, right? So building wealth was creating those experiences and then also being able to sleep at night as well. So that's kind of where the wealth came from, but it changed, right? And investing actually started because I got a tax bill that I didn't want to pay. It was a little too high. And I actually figured out, hey, if you invest, you get tax advantages. The government actually wants you to do this, right? They want you to partner with them. So I actually invest first for the tax savings and then second for the cash flow.
Well done. Yeah. Have you looked back though and seen for cash flow, I think one of the big misnomers in real estate is that you invest in real estate and suddenly, oh, you've got all this cash coming in every month. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but there's not that much cash. The appreciation has been where I've seen my massive wealth gains over time, right? I mean, I've been investing since 2002. So seeing these properties double in value a couple of times in Kansas City has been, way more. I mean, I drove by a house just yesterday on the way home from on a visit we were doing to a new construction site, and there was a property that one of my investors had 1031 into, a new construction down in Chapman Farms on South 7 Highway. He bought it for $217, and I'm like, you know what? What year was that? And I look back and he bought it for $212 in 2017. And I went back and looked. That was only 6 years ago. I looked at the HUD. Oh, he bought it for $212. I wonder what it's worth now. Zillow says $450. It's like doubles his money in 6 years, and has been cash flowing, through that time period. Again, cash flowing as in like breaking even, making a little bit of money here and there. I mean, new construction, he did fine. But the idea of capital appreciation and the depreciation benefits, when to your point, the government is saying, if you're a real estate professional, you get a write-off 100% of that. I mean, it's a valuable game that you can play.
It is. And because I was saving so much on my taxes, I was able to go invest more. And I think I understand the velocity of money at a high, like it's constantly moving, right? It doesn't sit there. And that's something I watched my bank account stack for a long time, and it made me comfortable, right? Because I was like, sweet, I got a lot of money in the bank. But guess what? It was doing nothing. I was getting 0.0003%, right? And now on deals, I can get, 12 to almost 20% return depending on what type of deal is going on.
Smart.
So I think that is a hard to get over, is like when you feel that comfort of the money in the bank and then you don't see it in the bank account, but it's all over here, right? So I think that's sometimes hard as like a barrier of entry to like watch that money like move like from the bank account over here, and it's working better and harder for you.
Yes.
But you can't see it.
You don't see the dollar in the bank.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. So this past week, I was just updating for a personal financial statement for the bankers, and was just sitting there with my wife kind of going through that. If something happens to me, here's where you need to go. Because I think every spouse's couples, one of them is super detailed and knows all about the numbers, and the other one's like, you got that. My wife's certainly on that side of the equation. So I just, happened to, hey, just come over here and look at, the financials, and seeing, how much money we had lent out to others and had in syndication deals and multifamily syndications. And she's like, that's a big number. Like, I had no idea. And so it paled in comparison to what we actually had in the bank. And I'm like, honey, money in the bank gives you security, but it's actually wasting, especially you're losing money in these inflationary times.
Correct.
Well, it's funny because part of our group, what we do is we tell people, invite your spouse, invite your partner. Because what we find is there's usually one person who's really into investing or wealth building, or they're gung-ho about it. And then there's the other partner or spouse who's like, I don't want you touching our money. So one of the things we talk about, and Klarissa does with the wealth building, is we'll find that number. You give an exact number that spouse says, not just, I want more in savings. I want more in savings. We need to save more. Well, what's that number? What would make you feel comfortable? And then the rest, anything over, now we can go play or actually start investing. So
having the 3 to 6 months, kind of the Dave Ramsey 3 to 6 months of living approach, have in a bank and just have the forget it money, then go invest the rest.
I'm the crazy one that has a year. Because
I have to have 6 months.
I have to have a year. That's okay. But that's how I sleep at night, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's different for everybody. And I think the comfort is knowing, set a number. It's like having a blueprint for success, right? When you're building a house, you have a blueprint to make sure you build the foundation first, then you do the walls and the roof and the siding, and everything comes together nicely. I think if you're looking at, your wealth accumulation as with the analogy of a house, the foundation is knowing that what you're doing over here, building wealth, your personal Klarissa and Brandi as a person should not be having to top up the business over here to make sure it can make its payroll or kind of pay those interest payments to the bank. You need to have them kind of the separation of personal and business, and your investing criteria should not impact your personal finances. You said you were profit first. When did you first hear about that, and how has that impacted your business?
I think KW is pretty big on profit first. So I think I've been doing profit first for 3 or 4 years now. And that's kind of a model that we also teach people is like a check comes in, some goes, you need to allocate those dollars, because if you don't, they'll
end up at the casino or in a fancy new car.
They'll erase from thin air. So you have to know where the money is going.
Awesome. Hey, I know you direct a lot of capital into investments in Kansas City. Let's talk about Kansas City, because we have a lot to brag about right now, right? Like you've got, 2 Super Bowl parades. You've got the NFL draft coming here this one. We've had the Major League Soccer team they won the championship. You had the Royals, just less than a decade ago, taking home a trophy and having a parade. We're used to parades. We're used to winning. And now Zillow's saying that Kansas City is like one of the hottest top 12 hottest markets for 2023. So tell me a little bit about how Kansas City has changed and how in the perception of your clients and how attractive it is for your investors.
I think it's still pretty attractive. Now, we used to be able to do the 1% rule, almost 2% rule all day long. Right now it's slightly changed a little bit, but deals are still out there. Like I know both of us and my investors are still doing deals today. You might just have to get a little bit more creative about them, but we have like for the most part, great schools. We have a lot of IT jobs that people don't know about. We have a lot of government jobs coming in and manufacturing that, is coming in like in Baser. So jobs are still coming to Kansas City, and it's still a great place to live. And I think you can still capitalize very well in Kansas City. Yeah,
I think between the Panasonic battery plant that they're going to build, the Tesla batteries, you've got North Point's development, out here in Independence that's going to have, the 5,000 jobs. I think Panasonic announced 5,000 jobs over the next 5 years. The downtown ballpark, potentially. You've got new construction everywhere. I mean, I feel like the city is growing and kind of absorbing. Obviously, clearly net positive migration patterns, but I think we've been struggling with housing starts because we obviously got hit a little bit in 2008 and they just had such a lack of housing development. I think we're now trying to play catch up. Do you guys work with builders at all? with new construction?
I do a little bit, but not a ton. I know you work a little bit more with builders than I do.
I do work with builders. I feel like they're still struggling out there, with the pricing, even though I know some of the materials have come down when it comes to land and just overall. So I know a lot of builders who've moved, to more of like a cost plus. And yet I feel like we still need more. But, being a builder is a really tough job. It's very tough. Just knowing from a family and construction. And so I don't think the consumer realizes how hard it is and how much they still get beat up on pricing. It's like, well, it is what it is. So I would love to do, just like with SBD Housing, it's like, hey, here's a development. Let's put in some more affordable housing. See if you can work with the city, however it is for land development. And I would love to just say, hey, here's a couple streets, and own them and then just done. For me.
You make it sound so easy.
It's so easy. Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So hey, look, let's wrap by kind of talking about getting realtors over the hump. Like, I know you guys actually coach and work with realtors. So from your perspective, we've talked today and kind of come some takeaways I've just jotted down here from this brain trust that we've got here in the room, that practicing or beta testing or shadowing is a pretty big deal for a first step. Building a team around you. You talked about building a team with a GC and making sure you have the right people around you. The temptation to hold on to cash, but obviously budgeting to have some cash set aside and then intentionally telling your money where to go. And then lastly, having a clearly defined buy box. So we've got those gems as takeaways. What would be just a lasting message from each of you to give to a realtor who's saying, okay, maybe it is the right time to start believing in real estate, as a long-term wealth accumulation strategy?
I mean, it might go down, but it's never going to go to zero, right? So
that's kind of like that's your worst case scenario. Mine talking.
Yeah, so. It's kind of, it might dip down, but guess what? If you dip down in 2008, you don't even care anymore, right? For what the prices are now. So just understanding, like, it's never going to go to zero. Yeah. There's tax advantages to it. If you do it correctly, have someone else pay down your mortgage. You still get all the benefits. And there's so many ways to learn. YouTube, podcasts, like, start listening. Meetup groups, right? There's people that are willing to help you as well. So I think it's just more taking a little bit of responsibility on themselves.
Well, you said earlier at the beginning that part of your discussion was mindset. Like, a big part of it is just kind of taking that personal accountability. So, you know what, I am going to do it. I am going to do this, and I need to have a structure and a way to do it.
Yeah.
Brandi, final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is, make sure you know where your finances are at. So even if it's something like just your balance sheet, where is the money coming from? If it's selling, hey, what am I selling to be able to have some cash so I can start, investing? And really, I am a person where I buy a lot of my own listings. So I'll go on a listing appointment. We have so many opportunities. And when you know your numbers, why don't you be the first one to make an offer on the home and to get that deal secured? One of the last things we should probably be doing is listing the property. So it's, how can I control it? How can I buy it? How can I either renovate it, buy and hold? And we just have such a great opportunity. So when you can find what your numbers are and what you feel comfortable with, start with that and then start looking for those deals that fit that criteria.
Yeah, and I think another thing that realtors could do that probably few are doing is the creativity of JVs. Like, it's so easy. Why not just come to a Brandi or Klarissa and say, hey, I'm a little bit nervous, but I want to be a part of this deal. Could I be a G or an LP? You take the lead, you get the financing, and just let me kind of shadow with you. I brought the deal to the table, so give me a little bit of the back end, and let's do this thing together, rather than just saying, okay, I'll list it for you, and then you put it on the MLS because that's the only way you know how to get a property sold.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And so what we'll tell agents when they come to us, they'll say, hey, I've got $50,000 or $100,000 and my spouse doesn't want to invest, or, can you help me? And so we'll say, hey, you bring us the deal, we'll do the deal. You can walk and shadow through the whole thing. You can take the listing on it as well. And at least they can get their feet wet, and we'll go through the whole system of how we do do it.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, you guys are influencing people and changing lives over there in at the KW office, and appreciate you coming in and sharing some of those gems with us today. Yeah. I will kind of put you on the spot for one last question I ask everyone who comes in. I'm a big believer in who, not how. Not how can I begin investing in real estate, but who can help me along the journey of trying to learn how to invest in real estate. So with that mindset of who, not how, if you were to kind of open up to the universe right now, I believe also that if you speak your problems into the universe, sometimes that they just appear, right? The answers appear naturally. So what is something that you may be struggling with or you want to learn more about, or something that's going on in your businesses that you could use a who, or that you're wanting to grow or solve a problem? Is there something in your business right now that you're struggling with or wanting help with? Could we voice that to the universe and hopefully solve a problem for you?
Sure. So for me, I would love to learn more about seller financing and creative financing. So that's something that's big. And gosh, I know I had a couple of them on that list. But seller financing, note space, would love to start investing. Even though I have rental properties, gosh, I'm kind of sick of being a landlord too. So that's something else that I'd love to get more involved in.
Yeah, I'm actually closing tomorrow on a fourplex that put zero money down on and bought for $412,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of and the biggest reason for the seller was that he did not want to pay tax. Above everything, he just didn't want to pay tax. And his basis was zero. Yep. So he knew that if he got $412,000 for the asset, he would have to pay the entire, gains on the property. And so I said, well, hey, there's a good way around that. Would you consider being the bank? And so we talked about that and how he would only have to repay or pay tax on the gain that was received when his principal was paid back. And so we talked about what that would look like. And he's like, well, I wouldn't want it paid off and I wouldn't want you to just pay me off straight away. So I said, no problem. I'll put a minimum that I have to have 10 years before I pay you back. So he literally didn't want to get paid back. So,
right. It's not always
those
about
kind
the
of
price, it's about the terms.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I will share with you, I've got an amazing calculator. Have you got Kyle's calculator?
We have the 10BII.
Yes.
There's an amazing calculator that I'll share with you
Which
guys.
there's a whole class on how to use it.
Yes.
the levers that you can pull to get creative. I know Eddie Speed, and he's a good friend of mine. It was funny. Part of was it you who knew Eddie?
We both.
Okay.
Yeah, we both.
So Eddie's a good friend of mine, and I was putting this deal together, and I'm like, Eddie, I want to get the promissory note, and I want to do this, and my attorney that just gave me a generic one. So he and I recorded a video to send to the attorney to draft up this document.
Oh, wow.
And so I sent it to the attorney, and my attorney was like, that was such a great education. Thank you so much. Because Eddie's brain is just at operating a whole nother level. And so when he and I are talking back and forth, and this guy, I just recorded a Loom video and then sent that recording to my attorney and said, hey, I know I got to pay you to watch a video, but can you just watch the video and then draft the documents? And he's like, that was an education, because it's reframing your brain to say it's not just pulling down a promissory note and a deed of trust from some generic website online or from your attorney. It's understanding that those documents were created for banks to make it very mutually beneficial. You can create it to be way more in the seller's, the walk the mortgage clause. So if I want to take that 3% money that I'm paying that guy and then turn around and move it to a different, piece of real estate down the road, that I have the ability to do that. Yeah. It's like all those intricate details that you want in there to be more in your favor. He's like, well, hey, this says that you're going to allow him with 24 hours notice to enter any of the premises. I'm like, oh wait, it says that? I'm like, I don't want that. He's like, of course you don't, change that. So it's like the little things that just randomly are in there as a default that you need to change and get better.
Yeah.
But
you talk about creating deals. If you can master that
100%.
Seller finance, and
especially when
are endless.
I think 80% of the people in the marketplace right now have a loan that's lower than the going rate, and I think 60% of them have an interest rate lower than 4%. Yeah. So if you can't go do creative now, you're going to be leaving some deals on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
Klarissa, same question?
I would say the same thing, just because I think the market is going to turn more creative on that right now with interest rates going up, but people have these lows. So we need to unlock that inventory, and we're going to have to figure out how to do that. One, for our own clients, and two, for ourselves. Yeah.
Awesome.
Buy those deals.
Well, I would take that as a to-do to maybe record some content and put it out there that would on the creative finance stuff. I'd love to come and help educate some of your you guys and the realtors you're influencing. So, well, hey, thank you so much once again. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode today. Love having people in the office. The energy today was palpable. Love it. So thank you for giving back. And I know that the more you give, the scales you're receiving will tip in your favor. So I hope you go blessed and appreciate your time. Thank you so much.